Eldemore, a village shrouded in mist and ancient tales. The air itself hummed with forgotten magic. Nestled amidst emerald hills, it seemed untouched by time. Yet a shadow lurked beneath the idyllic facade, a legend whispered through generations. The tale of Beelzebub, a fallen angel who in his envy crafted a mirror. Not just any mirror, this one reflected the deepest desires of the heart, twisting them into insatiable greed. Legend had it that Beelzebub, banished to the mortal realm, hid the mirror within the woods bordering Eldemore, a sinister relic waiting to ensnare the unsuspecting soul. The villagers of Eldemore knew the stories. They carried the weight of the legend in their eyes. It was a silent pact passed down through generations, never to venture into the woods, never to seek the mirror, for the price of ambition was far greater than any reward it promised. The woods stood as a silent guardian, a wall of gnarled trees and whispering shadows, a living testament to the darkness that lay hidden within. Alaric, the merchant, was not a man easily swayed by superstition. He was a figure of pragmatism in a world often clouded by myths and legends. He scoffed at the tales whispered around flickering candlelight, dismissing them as the idle chatter of those too afraid to seize their own destinies. He saw the world through the prism of opportunity, of profit and gain. Every transaction, every deal was a step towards a grander vision, a future where he stood above all others. The legend of Beelzebub's mirror was not a warning to him, but a challenge, a test of his resolve and his unyielding ambition. Alaric's ambition was a tangible thing. It was a force that drove him forward, a relentless pursuit of something greater than mere wealth. It pulsed within him, a relentless hunger that whispered promises of power and wealth. It was a fire that burned brighter with each passing day, consuming his thoughts and dreams. He craved not just riches, but the envy of his peers. He wanted to be the man others looked up to, the one they whispered about in awe and admiration. The mirror, he believed, was the key to unlocking that forbidden door. It was the gateway to a realm of untold power and influence. The warnings of the villagers fell on deaf ears. They spoke of dangers and curses, of shadows that consumed the unwary. They spoke of curses and shadows, of souls lost to the mirror's allure. But to Alaric, these were mere stories, the fears of those who dared not dream. But Alaric saw only their fear, their small-minded acceptance of a life bound by tradition. He saw their reluctance to step beyond the known, to challenge the status quo. He would prove them wrong. He would show them that greatness was not achieved by playing it safe, but by daring to reach for the impossible. He would claim the mirror's power and rise above them all. He would become a legend in his own right, a man who defied the odds and emerged victorious. His heart thrummed with a dangerous cocktail of excitement and trepidation. The path he had chosen was fraught with peril, but the rewards were too great to ignore. The closer he came to his goal, the more the whispers of the woods seemed to call to him. They were voices of the past, of those who had tried and failed. They were not warnings, he told himself. They were the echoes of those who lacked the courage to see it through. They were beckoning him towards his destiny, a destiny that only the bold could achieve, a destiny that awaited him just beyond the horizon. The air grew heavy as Alaric crossed the boundary. The sunlight, dappled and weak, struggled to penetrate the dense canopy. The woods felt ancient, every twisted branch and gnarled root whispering tales of a time long forgotten. A shiver ran down his spine, but he pressed on. His greed, a burning ember in his chest, fueled his every step. The deeper he ventured, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The air hung thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The forest floor was a treacherous maze of exposed roots and moss-covered stones. Strange fungi glowed with an eerie luminescence, casting flickering shadows that danced around him. The whispers intensified, seeming to emanate from the trees themselves. He pushed aside the growing unease gnawing at his resolve. Doubt was a luxury he could not afford. He had come too far to turn back. The mirror awaited. Section 4. The Devil's Mirror. This tale is one of dark enchantment and the perilous allure of forbidden power. It stood in a clearing, bathed in an ethereal light that seemed to emanate from within. The mirror, an artifact of ancient and malevolent magic. It was taller than a man, its frame wrought from what appeared to be polished obsidian. The craftsmanship was otherworldly, as if forged in the fires of the underworld. Its surface was not glass, but a swirling vortex of darkness that seemed to pull at his very soul. It was as if the mirror was alive, a sentient being with a hunger for the unwary. Alaric approached, his heart pounding against his ribs. Each step felt heavier, as if the very air around him was thick with unseen forces. He reached out, his fingers trembling, and touched the cool, smooth surface. The touch sent a shiver down his spine, a premonition of the darkness that awaited. The world dissolved around him. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist, pulling him into an abyss of shadows. He was pulled into the abyss, the whispers transforming into a deafening roar. He saw visions, fragmented and chaotic, each more tantalizing and terrifying than the last. Himself, draped in finery, his fingers dripping with jewels. The wealth was unimaginable, a king's ransom in his grasp. He saw the villagers bowing before him, their faces etched with envy and awe. They revered him, feared him, and he relished in their submission. He saw power, absolute and intoxicating, within his grasp, the kind of power that could reshape the world to his will. He was lost in the maelstrom of his own desires, consumed by the seductive promises whispered by the mirror. Each promise was a thread, weaving a web of temptation around his soul. It showed him everything he thought he ever wanted. Every dream, every ambition laid bare before him in vivid detail. It amplified his ambition, twisting it into a grotesque parody of itself. What once seemed noble and just became dark and corrupted. It offered him the world, but at a price he was too blinded by greed to comprehend. The mirror's promises were a double-edged sword, offering glory while hiding the cost in shadows. As he gazed deeper, he saw his reflection twist into a monstrous version of himself, a being consumed by darkness and greed. Alaric recoiled in horror, realizing the true nature of the mirror's power. It was not a gift, but a curse, a trap for the soul. With a final desperate act, he struck the mirror, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The vortex of darkness dissipated, leaving only silence and the cold, hard truth. Alaric stood alone in the forest, the shattered remains of the mirror at his feet. He had glimpsed the abyss and returned, forever changed by the darkness he had seen. Section 5. A Heart of Shadows. The transformation was gradual at first. It began with small, almost imperceptible changes that only those closest to him might have noticed. A subtle shift in demeanor, a glint of avarice in his eyes. His once warm and inviting gaze turned cold and calculating, as if he were constantly plotting his next move. He returned to Eldemore, the image of the mirror seared into his mind. The mirror's visions haunted him, a constant reminder of the power he craved. The visions it had shown him fueled his every waking moment. He saw himself as a ruler, a master of all he surveyed, and he would stop at nothing to achieve that vision. His greed became a ravenous beast. It consumed him, driving him to take more and more, never satisfied with what he had. He drove hard bargains, exploiting the villagers' trust for his own gain. He saw their needs and desires as weaknesses to be exploited, tools to further his own ambitions. He hoarded his wealth, his heart growing colder with each passing day. The more he accumulated, the more isolated he became, shutting himself off from the world. The man who had once valued community now saw only opportunity, each friendly face a potential stepping stone to greater riches. He no longer saw people, only means to an end. The whispers followed him back from the woods. They were the voices of his own conscience, twisted and dark, reminding him of the path he had chosen. They clung to him like a shroud, a constant reminder of the darkness he had embraced. No matter how much he tried to ignore them, they were always there, lurking in the shadows. He tried to ignore them, to drown them out with the clinking of coins and the rustle of ledgers. He buried himself in his work, hoping that the noise would silence the whispers, but they persisted, gnawing at the edges of his sanity. The more he tried to ignore them, the louder they became, until they were all he could hear. His dreams were haunted by the mirror's seductive whispers. They promised him power and glory, but also reminded him of the cost of his ambition. Promises of power and glory twisted into threats and accusations. The mirror showed him visions of his own downfall, of the darkness consuming him completely. The darkness he had invited into his heart was taking root, spreading its tendrils through his very being. It was no longer just a part of him, it was becoming him, transforming him into something unrecognizable. Section 6. The Blight on Eldemore. The village, once vibrant and alive, began to wither under the shadow of Alaric's greed. The laughter of children faded, replaced by a palpable sense of unease. The fields, once bountiful, yielded meager harvests. The very air seemed thick with despair. Alaric, blinded by his own ambition, remained oblivious to the suffering he inflicted. He saw the villagers' plight as their own failing, their misfortune a testament to his own supposed superiority. He had become a tyrant in their midst, his heart a cold, hard stone. The whispers intensified, now carrying a note of urgency. The villagers, their faces etched with worry, spoke in hushed tones of the curse that had befallen them. They looked to Alaric, their former friend and neighbour, with a mixture of fear and accusation in their eyes. But Alaric, consumed by his own desires, dismissed their concerns. He had achieved what he desired. He had wealth, power, and the envy of those around him. What more could there possibly be?